Hello and welcome back to Tiny House Big Moments. I wanted to do a quick video on legalizing tiny homes. We are kind of in the thick of it right now here in Colorado with our family personally. So I wanted to start with our personal journey to legalizing tiny homes and where we are at right now in our journey, and then some tips and tricks for helping move the movement forward. So thanks for being here, and don't mind my bloated face. I am 31 weeks pregnant. We are excited to add to our tiny house family. And yes, we designed our tiny house for 4 people. So this will be it for our family, and we're excited to have them sometime late June, early July is when they will be joining us, and we're excited about that. So when our first steps to legalizing tiny was just to get active in our local community. So back in Minnesota, we were approached by a city south of the Twin Cities, and one of the city council members actually approached us as dwellers and wanted to know if we wanted to help. So of course I jumped on that opportunity, and it was a group of us, I think about 6 people. We had the city council member, 2 dwellers, myself, and my good friend Stephanie at 2 girls and a tiny. And she has been living in her tiny house for over a year now. Might even be more than that. Might be getting close to 2 years here. And then a superintendent of a school district who is living tiny. And then we had a real estate agent and a builder. And so we got together, brainstormed how we wanted to approach the city council. Now, this was for ADUs specifically. So for those who are not aware with that acronym, it's accessory dwelling unit. And this is a really, really popular way to start legalizing tiny. It's definitely not the end goal, but it is a great step to legalizing tiny homes, and it's really helpful for those who want to have a second dwelling. A lot of times people will call them granny pads or secondary units. A lot of families like the idea of having an option for either extra income or just to have a place for their, kids who are in college to stay and have kind of some autonomy, or their mom or dad to stay as they age in the backyard. So kind of having their own space, but still being close by. So this is ADUs have been known to do Airbnbs, but the legalities on that is specific to your city and county. So that is an option, is the ADUs. So that's what we were working on, and we were able to get it approved. We just came at it from having those multiple different perspectives. We also had, some community support. We had some data and demographics pulled, and we provided a presentation before the meeting. That was helpful. So they got to kind of read over it and just kind of understand tiny homes and how they will help the community. If you're looking for that information, I have it available on my website, www.mindfulminimalistmama, and that's MAMA, mama.com. And you can find it on the tiny house tab. And I have the whole presentation from a different county with some demographics and just giving people some idea on how to approach. I will be updating that as well this year. I'm doing a new survey, so go to that same website and fill out the survey, and that will really help me update the data and get a more current perspective for municipalities as far as current culture and standings of those who are interested in tiny homes. So once we got those ADUs approved, we kind of took a break. We had some miscarriages, and life just got crazy, and we were planning our move to Colorado. So I took a break and just did more advocacy through speaking, tiny house forums online. And then once we moved to Colorado a year ago, things really picked up again. And I was able to get together with a group and pull more data and meet with a county, and that gave us some great ideas on what to do and what not to do. So they, once, ADUs is one way, and then planned unit development is another way to approach municipalities. That has been going really well here in Colorado specifically. In Minnesota, it's kind of at a standstill right now, so I have to connect with some people there and see what the next step is for them. But planned unit developments are a great way to go because you can get around some zoning and some rules as far as, amount of people per lot, because it's just a specific development and they don't have to change zoning. So a lot of people are going that direction. And to do so, those would be more like tiny home communities. It can be anything from 3 people to 150 people, or homes in a spot. So with that, it gets a little complicated because you do need to, submit plans and get engineers on board and have a business plan. And if that's a way you go, I would highly recommend connecting with a local developer and getting ideas on how to get started and how you would like your community to look. Some other ways people are legalizing tiny homes is they are taking over mobile home parks and RV parks and then transitioning them to tiny homes. This I was really hesitant about, but it's actually been rather successful. Ideally, my dream is that tiny home dwellers have a little bit more dignified spaces as far as yard, and a lot more freedom. So ideally, tiny house communities will kind of be their own entity, and not to say that RVs and mobile homes won't be allowed, but the current infrastructure of most RV parks and mobile homes parks are that they're extremely close together, and there's a lot of restrictions on whether you can have a garden or certain pets or amount of cars, and it gets tricky when you have a family, especially with things like gardens and amount of cars and pets. And so it is an option, and we are currently living in an RV park. I guess I wouldn't even call it a park. There's only 9 spots. So it's been a great compromise for us currently. We've been staying in backyards for the past 3 years. And the situation with landlords, we've had some really great landlords. We've had some really terrible landlords that didn't own they always tried to change the contract and tried to get more money. Or it just wasn't the best location. But we've also had some amazing landlords. So backyards are still an option for tiny homes. We've never been caught. We've never gotten in trouble. It's been our choice to move just to find a better job, or just didn't work out. So currently at the RV park, the tricky part with RV parks is you cannot stay full term. There are some around the country that you can. I don't know how they get around it. I'm guessing they just don't tell people or how they go about it, but I think in California, there's some places you actually can legally live in an RV full time. At least in Minnesota and Colorado, it is not acceptable to stay in it full time. I'm not sure about other states, but I think it's pretty well known that RV parks are recreational use, so not permanent dwelling. Our current park, they allow us to stay for 6 months, and then we have to move for a month. And on top of that, there's a county fair and every year in August, and they make you move for 10 days during that as well. So not ideal for a tiny home. Tiny homes, you can see behind me, we have open shelving, we've got glass, we've got tons of stuff that we have to pack up every time we move, and we really just want a place to call home. Another setback to RV parks is we're not allowed to have a shed. We're not allowed to have any type of gardening. So, it just gets to be, it's just really for temporary use. It's we have our shed currently at a friend's house down the road, and that's not fair to always have our shed over there. And, our bikes are just out getting rained on and getting rusty. So it's a great temporary solution, but most tiny house dwellers want to move every 5, 10, 15 years for new jobs, better locations, not necessarily daily and weekly. Of course, there are some that do that, and those are smaller tiny homes, and they're a little bit more mobile. Ours is 20,000 pounds, and we did this for the sustainability, and we did it to show our children that you can live sustainably in luxury, and that you can, have a small imprint on the planet. And we also did it for the freedoms that come with it. So I don't want to discourage you. There are a lot of freedoms, and tiny home communities are popping up all over the country. If you're looking, please find www.searchtinyhousevillages.com. That's by Joe Canto. And that includes a wide variety of not just tiny homes on wheels or on foundations. It also includes, buses and yurts, and so any very small dwelling communities, I guess. And let's see. So with our current situation with legalizing tiny homes, we are working with our local county. I've been, again, pulling data. I've been contacting the local community college. So far, no one really wants any type of connection except for one person in the engineering department. So we have a meeting next week, and we're going to be working on tiny house foundation ideas for municipalities that want something different than a mobile home tie down. Mobile home tie downs you could use any foundation with a tiny home, really. It's just figuring out how to fasten them down and how permanent you want it. We're trying to come up with a solution where it's semi-permanent, so you can get up and go without ruining the foundation. And having to, redo everything according to each tiny house's size. So this would really pertain more to communities where, there's short-term, long-term leases kind of intertwined in there. So I've I emailed with the city planner, and then we'll be meeting here in the next few weeks. And they've been extremely accommodating. The county, when we went to the county the city council meeting for a development with Micro Living LLC, that went decently well. We were amazed that the amount of pushback from the community. It was a small community, and they did not want to see 6 homes squished into 2 city lots. And actually, if you look at the plan, they're actually spread out pretty nice, and they have a big open space where they can have a community garden and community laundry. So I would check that out at Micro Living LLC. And the big part for us is really educating. So we've been working really hard on educating municipalities on how tiny homes can help improve their city. So that's been really helpful for us. I've been partnering with a developer, and that helps because having someone on your side that understands the jargon and what all goes into, developing a property is really helpful. For me, that's all way over my head, and I've been trying to learn. It's not my specialty. My specialty is really coming at it from a dweller perspective and coming at it from a place of, here's what we're going to offer for the community. Instead of spending our money on our mortgage, we are going to be volunteering, having ideas like hey, we can start a community garden because I'll have more time. So really figuring out, working with the community with how we can improve the community together. A lot of communities don't want to see another RV park or trailer park. So ways to communicate that is to talk about the different demographics that come with tiny houses. And you can find that again on my website. I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think it was something around like 60, 70, maybe even 75% of tiny home dwellers and want to be dwellers have at minimum 2 years of college. They make around $30,000 to $75,000 a year. And they want to give back. They want to spend their money back into the community and not on their mortgage. And a lot of them said with their extra time that they would be, volunteering or doing some sort of entrepreneur thing in the county. So really neat to be able to have those statistics to pull out and talk with the community about how tiny house dwellers want to give back. It's just a very different culture than some of the other small dwellings. So hopefully that is helpful for you. And we are currently working on a mobile home spot, not our forever spot, but the nice thing about this is it's actually a big lot. It's more of just a neighborhood, streets, and we will be allowed to have gardens and fence, and the dog can be out, and we can have our pets, and we can be there more permanently. So we need to work on with the city how they want us to strap down, how they want us to go about the aesthetics so that we fit into the community. They've been very accommodating. They're not worried at all. We built our tiny home to fit in. So we're brown with white trim. It looks like a little cottage. So if you're thinking about going tiny, think about designing it in a way that you can sort of blend in with the local community. And as far as your journey to legalizing tiny homes, the first place to start is find your local tiny house meetup, find your local tiny house Facebook group or Instagram. For example, I have a Routt County Tiny House Collective group on Facebook. I have Routt County Tiny House Collective on Instagram, where I post any local meetups that we do, any moving forward as far as, how municipalities are handling it. The best thing you can do is connect with those people and then write a letter to your local community saying why you support tiny homes, what you would offer, why it's important to the community. Some people like to talk about affordable housing, others don't. Here in Colorado, it's a constant discussion, especially in a mountain town where we are, where it's very tourism based. And a lot of the wealth is coming from people who don't live here. So the homes are unaffordable for the people who live here, and they get rented out for tourism. So ideally that will shift and we can have some affordable housing options. And not only affordable housing options, but affordable housing options that are less toxic and healthy for those living in it. So if you haven't already, you can check out my book, Minimalist Living for a Maximum Life. And I have done studies and found RV. We've lived in everything. We lived in a 2,000 square foot home. We've lived in a double wide trailer. We've lived in apartments. We've lived in our tiny house, and we lived in an RV. And the RV made us sick. The mobile home made us sick. Lots of issues with mold and off-gassing from formaldehyde and other paints and glues and things that are, and just even all the walls and everything is just made from materials that carry toxins and off-gas. So not to say that you shouldn't own any of those things and that it makes you lesser of a person. Just be aware that your health can be affected by your home. So we built our home with non-toxic materials as much as possible. Everything was, has no off-gassing. We did end up having to do spray foam just because of Minnesota weather and getting our value without having to lose a ton of indoor space. And, but we actually, that off-gassed for an entire year. So before we moved in. So that was really great, to be able to move in, and there was zero smells. Our RV made us very sick. We've had one old RV and one new RV, and the new RV we bought was supposedly the least toxic on the market, and actually they had to go to business because they couldn't compete with the toxic RVs. So something to think about. We have friends that live RVs full time. Yes, they can off gas, and there's always this balance of, do you get an older RV because it's off gas, but then you might have mold. Well, you will have mold because of insulation. Or do you get a new one and then just deal with off-gassing, but you don't have mold? Ideally, tiny homes are just a great compromise as far as healthier options for building materials. But even then, you still need to talk to your builder, or if you're DIYing, just try really hard to find non-toxic materials. You can also check out A Tiny Good Thing. She has, Isabel has some great green kits for you to really provide you with a healthy green home. And let's see. Okay, so back to legalizing tiny homes. So you're connecting with your local groups, you're writing a letter of support. You can also get involved by supporting the tiny house festivals and either speaking yourself or connecting there with other locals that are really working hard to legalize tiny homes. Let's see. And then you can look in your, talk to your local community college or college and check their sustainability program, their building program, any programs that you think might be interested in tiny homes. Ask them if anything's going on or if they're interested in anything, connecting with local builders. Let's see. So really, that's really, it just comes down to networking and finding your tribe that's going to come forward. Oh, connecting with the American Tiny House Association is great. They have some options and meetups and some information on their website and their Facebook page. And then also here, if you're in Colorado, please connect with the Colorado Tiny House Association. It's free membership. You just get connected with us and you'll be getting updates on local happenings as far as tiny house legalization goes. So those are some ways you can start and become an advocate. Also, please check out Tiny House Expedition. They have their YouTube videos, Legalize Tiny Houses Part 1 and 2. And that really helped me on my journey, giving me ideas on how to approach local municipalities. So when you are approaching local municipalities, be sure that you're not talking at them. Ask them what their needs are, what their current status is on tiny homes, how they see tiny homes as being a part of the solution. A lot of times we get really emotional and excited about it, but we also want to make sure that it's just one of the many solutions available for attainable housing, affordable housing. When people say affordable housing, sometimes they think of homeless tiny house things, and for some that's a good thing because of their homeless population. For others, they think of trashy mobile home parks and trailer parks and such. So really just, with your friends, with acquaintances, really get the word out that these are not, tiny home communities are here to improve the aesthetics of the community and not turn into garbage dumps. And it's hard because living in a town where mobile homes are one of the most common housing, we want to try. It's not that all mobile home parks have issues with aesthetics and upkeep. It really comes down to the ownership of that park. So tiny house communities or mobile home park communities or RV parks, it really comes down to the owners and their HOA policy or their rules and regulations as far as upkeep. And it can be done beautifully no matter what type of home you live in. And really, the whole point of tiny house movement and any small dwelling is that we're giving people the opportunity to spend their money on experiences, on self-care, getting their lives back on track instead of on their housing. So we don't want to, we're not higher than thou is what I've heard a lot from people. Is tiny home dwellers think that they are better than RV dwellers or mobile home park dwellers. And that is not the case. It's that we are currently not legal. So we are looking for ways to have the same rights that other dwellers have. And that is to live somewhere permanently with a decent yard and a decent cost so that we can live the lives that we dream of. So, it's not that we are better than, it's that it offers that happy medium between a mobile home and a regular home. So I kind of see it in a perspective as far as architecture goes as RV, mobile home, tiny house, regular house. That's kind of how I have envisioned it, and especially talking to dwellers and talking to builders on how, as far as material structure goes, that's kind of how it plays out. And again, that doesn't mean that RVs and mobile homes are less you know, lesser than or anything. It just, they're built with different materials. And tiny homes offer, that house feeling with the same or better materials that you would use in a regular house, just in a smaller package. And that just is something that there's a lot of people with chemical sensitivities, like our family, a lot of people with allergies, and a lot of people who just want a different structurally put together home. So I want to be sure that, people know in other communities that it is not that we want to be different and separate. It's that we are currently not legal. And so we need to have our own code, our own differentiation that makes us who we are, so that we can move towards having permanent dwelling. And a lot of times we'll see a lot of RV dwellers coming in and saying that they are a tiny house. Yes, you are a tiny dwelling, but we as a community and an industry want to work on our language, because a tiny house on wheels, tiny house foundation, we're looking to have a code specifically for us. And the reason for that is so that we can work with municipalities to have permanent dwelling versus, for example, RVs, which are recreational vehicle by definition, temporary dwelling by definition. So that is kind of where we're at. Is not that we are trying to be better. We are just trying to come up with an industry standard so that we are that in between mobile home and regular home for permanent dwelling. Where that gets complicated is some people like to travel in their tiny home, which is great too. So maybe it is something where, if you get certified RVIA, then your tiny house is, recreational vehicle. And then if you get certified by ANSI code, or ideally our own tiny house code, then that would make you more of a permanent dwelling, and you would only move it like you would a mobile home, just to move it to a new place, less often, like if you get a new job, or if, you just want to move to a different state for family. So lots of options. If you have any ideas, what you would like to see happen, please comment below. And check out the websites I mentioned. I will get them in the in the description as well. And if you want to follow our journey, just check us out at Tiny House Big Moments on all social media. I'm also on all social media at Mindful Minimalist Mama. If you want more holistic, unschooling, organic, minimalist lifestyle, I like to do put my feet in a lot of places, kind of straddling both worlds there. But thanks again for your support for Tiny House Living. And it's exciting. It's frustrating. It's not the easiest journey, but it's totally worth it. The freedoms are definitely worth this in-between limbo. And a lot of people get frustrated because the movement started so that you can avoid all this legal jargon and legislation and all this stuff. But as the movement has grown, we have found that many of us are tired of getting kicked out and tired of moving around. And so it's interesting how it's going to play out. The good news is, if you do want that off-grid free lifestyle, you can still live in other people's backyards, especially in rural areas, and you can still, do what you want, per se, as long as you're careful not to get caught. And so the movement is still very much alive in that way, and you still can build your own tiny house, and you can live where you want, as long as you don't get caught. And for the other side of the movement, for those who want to live permanently on a location, we're working on that for you too. So thanks again, and may abundance flow to you with ease. May you follow your bliss and live the life you always dreamed of.